right? Unique New York. Unique New York. Nick Aalerud. He is Greater Boston's #1 home buyer, multifamily owner, best-selling author, speaker. My favorite part about his bio, a mindset and real estate coach. I love the wording here as well, where they're able to help 100 homeowners per year plus, not just buy deals. Nothing wrong with that terminology, but I do appreciate helping out homeowners. So that's what it is all about at the end of the day for the acquisition side of things. His new mission is to profoundly impact as many people as he can. Love that as well. Through his business ventures, coaching programs, charity, service work, and his efforts being the best dad, soulmate, and team leader he can be. A lot to dive in there, Nick, but it is great to see you, man. It was awesome to connect before we started rolling as well. And I appreciate the time that we're able to spend today because I think it's going to help a lot of people and resonate with a lot of people that listen to this.
Thanks, Carlos. Appreciate the invite, man. This is great.
A pleasure and a privilege, man. Let's talk. Let's get down to brass tacks and business here, man. What do you have going on today? And then we'll kind of talk about how you got into real estate originally.
Sure. Yeah. So we're I'd say the #1 greatest home buyer in Greater Boston. We are located about 30 minutes north of Boston, and we have a fix and flip firm, AA Real Estate Home Buyers. We have a debt negotiation firm, which started in 2010 for reasons that people already know. It's called Short Sale Mitigation. We have a rental company that owns and holds rentals. We have a property management company that manages those rentals as well as third party for others. And we have a full-scale real estate, retail, and investor brokerage in the Mass and New Hampshire markets too. So we kind of have it all. We have it covered, and it's we like to call it vertically integrated. And by saying that too, it's funny because I would think of someone who said that to me as being unfocused, but I will say that every single one of those entities we created in order based on how they needed to service, the entity before that. So I like they all kind of work together, which has been great.
I love that. That's a lot of stuff going on. It reminds me of a company here in Baltimore, the Dominion Group, that kind of has a similar setup, and they all were vertically integrated for the reasons they needed with property management for their own stuff. Insurance, lending nationwide, like pretty much everything is under the same company, but they built it year after year, I think since like 2002 or 2000, something like that. So that's cool to see. You also have coaching going on as well, which is how we connected on this particular interview, which I absolutely love. Mind, real estate. We're going to take a deep dive at some point in there. But tell us a little bit about the coaching program that you have going on. I'll have a link in the show notes in case people want to click on that and listen to it while they're in the first couple minutes of this interview as well.
Sure, absolutely. It started when I basically laid out my entire systems manual and it was originally called the Complete Deal Flow System, which it still is called today. We're going through a massive rebrand right now. It's going to be turning into REI Accelerated. And what it does is there's a whole bunch of, other coaching programs and a lot of them are higher cost. A lot of them are people that are not in their markets or things are not applicable in certain markets. So what I did was I took a base fundamentals course, because if you're a real estate investor, you of all people know, Carlos, especially with what InvestorFuse does, you can't set goals and targets if you don't have access to the deal flow. Mm-hmm. Right? You can't set goals and targets if you are relying on agents or on wholesalers or on someone else to funnel you deals, whether they're rehabs, whether they're multifamily, whatever they are. So we take people through the basics of how they can set up their own marketing engines. Like, how do I get the deal? Number one, how do I negotiate the deal? How do I analyze the deal? How do I talk to sellers? How do I meet with the sellers? What do I say? What do I do? And it takes them all the way through, including, what goes in the offer? What clauses go in there? How do I set this offer up? And for the wholesalers, and then takes it through a process of how do I liquidate and get paid on these deals. It takes them through everything. And we try to keep it extremely low cost, which is the difference, I think, between our program and a lot of the national programs out there. And from that base level program, most people can take that and just go with it on their own with their own companies. Some people opt to go into that advanced, more accountability-based coaching, which is a 3, 6, and 12-month program. And we have myself and 2 other amazing coaches that have obviously been through it. And not just have been through the program, but we've been through the shit. And I think that's what people need. People need people who have been through a market cycle or who have lost a whole bunch of money or who have really, really felt pain And in order to prevent them from either feeling that pain or feeling a little bit of that pain, so they get a taste of it and then moving up into a rocket ship, right, into their business. So I'm obviously love that business. It's an impact business more than anything else. And I just love seeing other people succeed, especially where we are now and where we can try to help them. We impact them along with our motivated sellers. It's a huge impact game.
Love that, man. We will bookmark that, and I'm sure come back to it organically as we're chatting here throughout the conversation. The last piece before we talk about your real estate journey chronologically, as far as how you started, what type of charity and service work are you into as well?
Oh, that's awesome. So we actually had our own 501c3, a nonprofit, which was fantastic. It was, we're going to be restarting it again. I think it was extreme events for kids with extreme illnesses. And we used to go skydiving once a year to benefit kids. We would just raise a whole bunch of money, and we would support like a local organization that would help if they were terminal, it would help them kind of live out their dream before like meeting a big sports player or going to Disney World or going to a sports game, whatever it was. Or if they were just in a serious situation, it actually raised funds to help the parents get residency around the hospital. Like around here, we have Mass General as our big hospital, right? And Children's Hospital. So if they didn't have the money to like fly out and be with their kids, we would help raise that money for it. So love that stuff. And now we have Charity of the Year, especially as it goes for our brokerage. So whatever, we pick one charity a year where more than 90% of the money will actually get to the intent. And we just focus on that once a year. We raise a bunch of money, and we try to have an impact that way. So,
dude, that is so amazing and fires me up. And really, when you distill down life to its core essence, isn't that what life is all about? Like, showing love and appreciation for people and helping out. You live life to improve yourself, and then at the end of the day, it's about giving back and helping other people enjoy their lives, especially those that don't have much longer to live, or they know they're kind of on a timetable. So that's absolutely amazing, man. I love that.
Thank you. 1,000%. I mean, for us, and I'll be honest with you, Carlos, like I've been in this business for 16 years, and it wasn't until like 5 years ago that I actually instituted like a set of core values, right? That I actually like tried to live out core values as a part of my day-to-day. Like it was all kind of like chasing the dollar, chasing the deal, I love to hunt, right? I love that. And that's kind of what we do as entrepreneurs, right? We love the hunt. We have the thrill of the business venture. But you're absolutely right. Like what else are we doing on a day-to-day basis? Are we leaving anything as a legacy? Are we impacting people? And when you start to think of it that way, you make different decisions in what you do on a day-to-day basis. So I love that too. Thank you.
My pleasure, man. Appreciate you. What are some of the core values you operate from on a daily basis that you've recently uncovered that you shared there?
Yeah, 5 years ago, we have 4 core values. We've stuck with them. So number 1 is hashtag do what's right, or integrity, right? And this doesn't just mean do what's right out in the field, like, do what's right even when people aren't looking. It's also integrity with ourselves. If we say we're going to be at a meeting at 5 o'clock and we are 4 minutes late, we're not in integrity with ourselves, right? So it's kind of like integrity outside and integrity inside as well, with everything we have. Number 2 is give first with a hashtag, or service. So always giving first. In fact, our home buyers team, their goal when they're out in the field is not to get a contract signed. Their goal is to get a testimonial. If we can make that seller know that we cared about them more than, in this market, there's competition everywhere, right? If we can make that seller really feel listened to and felt like we address their needs and solutions more than anybody else that they've met with, that's our goal. Because we can get a referral from them, we can get a testimonial from them, we can use that to leverage. So our goal is to make them smile and get a testimonial over getting a contract signed. And that has been huge, right? Giving without the intent of receiving back. And then third, you just have me on a roll here, man. I'll try to be quick, but third is teamwork, right? So everyone internally and externally, we all operate. There's no really competition. There's co-opetition, but if we're inside it as a team, we reward people for like stepping up and really focusing on helping their teammate. Like, okay, they need to be developed. I have more reps in than they do. How can I help them through this process, right? So how do we get that together? And the fourth and the biggest one is impact. Who are we impacting on a day-to-day basis? Our motivated sellers, our burnt out landlords, our own team, right? Motivating, or if we have teammates that are going through a really tough family issue, like how can we impact people on a day-to-day basis more than chasing the almighty dollar?
Love it, man. And I'm sure we're going to see how those core values that you established 5 years ago came to be through your real estate journey. Doing what's right, give first, teamwork, and impact. What type of impact you're leaving, who you're impacting. Don't brush over the nugget there, which is a huge mental framework for your team to go through. And it also hits a really good principle that I love, focusing on things that you can control instead of the uncontrollable. If you tell your acquisitions or boots on the ground, whoever, to focus on getting testimonials, which is leaving a lasting impression, providing value, educating them whether it's the best option to work with your company or not, instead of getting a contract, which is basically, terms and that person's sales negotiation skills. The testimony is a lot more controllable, and it sounds like it's been big for you guys. So I love that nugget, and I would invite you guys to explore or test that out with your acquisition teams when they're going on appointments or talking over the phone with people. That's awesome.
Indeed. Absolutely. 1,000%.
Cool, man. Well, let's get into brass tacks here. What got you into your real estate investing journey where you're able to impact with charity and service work you're doing and have these companies and coaching now and magnifying the amount of impacts that you're able to leave on the world?
Oh man. So, I mean, a lot of people locally have heard this story, so I'll share it with your team. I started in a really non-traditional way. So I was a banker. I was working full time in Boston, and they were burning me out quick, right? Like every banker has a really sexy title, and everyone's a vice president and everyone's a supervisor.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I think I started there. I was making less than 40,000 a year, and I was promoted, and I was overseeing like 40 people and still making under 40,000 a year. So, so it doesn't matter. Like I was burning out quick. I was working weekends. I was working Christmas Day and New Year's Day. We were on the big funds that we were trying to service. And I just remember I was totally burnt out, and I was playing a board game with a couple of my buddies from school. And if you heard of the game of Risk, have you heard of that? Yes, we're entrepreneurs, right? We all, especially we were nerdy political science majors. So we all wanted to take over the world. So this is kind of what we did. And we played this game. They all ganged up on me. They got me out first, and I'm hosting. So I can't like kick them. I can't leave. And they're all standing there like still playing. And I just turn on the TV. It's 2 a.m. And what do I see is, a real estate infomercial on how to buy real estate for pennies on the dollar. Like, well, I guess that's kind of interesting. And it all started as a joke. I'm showing my buddies, like, look at this. I have no life. I'm watching infomercials. I'm now buying crap on TV because you guys won't leave. And it was a $50 binder. It came in the mail, and it was like how to buy real estate pennies on the dollar. It was a tax lien course. And I didn't even know what real estate, I didn't know there was closings. I thought there was still, you just buy them. I was a first-time home buyer, never had bought anything in my life. And I remember reading it. It said, if you're serious about real estate, call this number. And it was an 800 number. I guess I'm serious. I just paid $50 and opened up a binder. Like, this is kind of serious. And I called that number, and the best salesperson in the world talked me into my first $6,000 over-the-phone boot camp of how to buy real estate.
Nice.
And it was, I had to get out 3 credit cards. Like he was an amazing salesperson. I still to this day have no idea how he got through all my objections and all that, but I did that. And that course, he was based out of state. It wasn't really relevant to my own state, but I remember one of my homework assignments was to read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Like every one of the other people that on your podcast have already read, all of us at real estate have already read, like that. Just like everyone else, changed the game. It changed my frame in my head. And that's when I knew real estate was like my way out of the corporate grind. And I had to figure out a way to do this. So that same year, this is all in 2004, 2005. That same year, I went to something in Boston called the Learning Annex, which is where all the national speakers, including Donald Trump and Robert Kiyosaki and, all these people came together. And it was a big sell fest, right? Like they were pitching all their national programs, like 6,000 for this program and 13,000 for this program and 4,000 for this program. And I mean, I went nuts. I had a budget, right? I was successful, mildly successful, and I'd been saving a bunch of my money. And I'm like, this is it. This is my way out. So I bought like 5 programs. And I was then mad at myself 3 months later when I hadn't done anything. And, I'm going to try to shorten the story for you, but it's funny because I think a lot of your listeners can like relate with this, where you invest in this, you're in yourself, you have to do it, but this is the mindset thing. Like, why haven't I done this yet? I just paid a whole bunch of money. Am I going through motions, or am I interested or just committed? Right. And I remember in the shower one day, I used to have hair. I know it's hard to believe. A long time ago, I had some hair, and I remember in the shower, I said, by the time that shampoo bottle is down to zero, I'll have done a deal in real estate.
Love that.
Every single morning, that became my accountability partner. Like every morning, little by little, right? And except for those days, I was just like, I need some more time. So I just wouldn't use shampoo at all, and I'd smell the whole day. But besides that, so I remember going through all that, and it was almost gone when I was hustling. I'm on like websites. I'm trying to like get my marketing out at night. I'm like doing everything I can because I'm still working, 60 hours a week at the bank. And a guy out of state calls me. He says, "Hey, listen, I see you hustling out there, and I'm in Minnesota, and I have some undervalued real estate that we can purchase for less than what it's worth. I have now we call them lease option buyers or rent to own buyers. I have a rent to own buyers. I'm going to pay 20% above market rate for the rent while they get their credit back together. And then in 3 years, they're going to cash us out. They're working with this mortgage guy, and they're going to cash us out. It's 20% above what we're paying for it." And back then it was legal, Carlos, at the closing. You'd contract with a seller for like $450,000 for a single family house. They could pass you a $50,000 check at the closing table and say, "Thank you so much," right? Because you finance that 90 or 100%. And they would just toss you back 50 grand as like a thank you, called a payment authorization. So it was like no brainer, like make money three ways: at the closing, in cash flow, and at the end. This guy's going to teach me about rent to owns. This guy's going to teach me about how to manage property. Like, this is awesome. So
this is a random guy that called you?
Yeah. He saw me online. I think it was from the early version of like Bigger Pockets or something. And he just sort of jumped in, and,
you attracted it. That's amazing.
Yeah. This was great. Right. I didn't buy one. I bought 5 in 1 week because I'm like, whatever. It was all 90% or 100% financed anyway. Just go for it. Right. Go for the gold. And it was all good until Monday came, and we tried to get our call with him, and he didn't, answer the call. And then like we're trying to email him, and he's not really responding, or sending like really cryptic like one-liners, and it's like, where is this guy? What's going on? And as it would turn out, he would get 40% of what we collected at those closings, and we took 60%. But I'm the credit partner, right? I'm the guy with the dotted line name, and there were no tenant buyers. He had forged the rental applications. He had forged the leases. He had forged the PNSs. He took his 40% and kind of pieced out. And I spent the money I had just made, which wasn't really my money, right? It was loans, but I had made that money. I spent it on attorneys to chase him. I spent it on property managers to try to manage these things. And I lost all 5 deals. 4 to short sale, 1 to foreclosure. This all happened in 2005. Because also, who was to know that I was buying? I didn't know what a market cycle was. 2005, baby. Like, let's just go for it, right? So I had a very serious fear of my phone after that, because I would get collections calls, 10 loans. I would get 38 seconds every time. There'd be another 800 number trying to call for a collections call. They're all automated, right? But I had a fear of my phone for a really long time. So that was how I started in real estate. And my progression from there is I put my head in the sand for like 4 to 5 months. And this is when I sort of said, this real estate's still my way out of this corporate thing. Like, if the bank checked my credit, I'd lose my job. I knew I still had to have a backup. I needed to be in business for me. And what do I have to do that, make that happen? So I took out a spreadsheet, and I started making rules, like buying rules in ways that I would operate from my mindset, but also on a buying side, buy box, where I couldn't lose money because I had no more money to lose. And not only that, I had no credit. I lost all my credit. I lost all my cash, and I started with 400,000 in judgments on my credit report. And that's how I restarted in real estate. So that's when I learned. I took 4 months off, tried to get my mind right. I went to a hypnosis session that made me realize that I was the one responsible, not him, not this guy out in Minnesota. It was me, right? I didn't do due diligence. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't capable enough of, I was looking for a way out, or an easy way, or a quick and easy route. And I took it, and I paid for it. That was my first big reset button. And I restarted by going out and networking again. I found a buyer who was buying triple deckers in this suburb of Boston here called Somerville. And he was buying 3 family buildings and condoing them and selling them off. And I learned what he was looking for. And nights and weekends, I would go out and just knock on doors and talk to a bunch of tenants, but then finally get to the owners and lock up contracts and sell them to him, which was called wholesaling, right? I didn't know what it was called back then. And lock them up for about $5,000 each. And finally had enough money to do my first deal on my own, 3-family, same exact deal, because I was keeping the same model that he was working for him. And with a hard money loan, got the deal done, and we broke even on the deal. And that was the biggest win that I had ever had, because that proved the concept. I don't have to lose money if I'm in real estate.
Mm-hmm. Proof of concept is huge that you can do it. And then also what you said with the hypnosis therapy is realizing the accountability is all on you. That's something I work on every day, or try to remind myself of every day, but you just flow differently and perceive everything differently when you overly take responsibility for stuff, even if it's stuff that you have no control of. I don't know. I just feel like a different energy and end up taking different actions, which is one of the most important things, obviously, on those days where I take like over accountability, even if it's for like ridiculous stuff like the weather or other people's reactions or anything like that. Like when you overly take accountability and say everything is on you, you flow a lot more differently. And that's persistent as hell to be working 60 hours a week and also just banging on doors and trying to find deals on nights and weekends. And you were happy to break even on that first deal that you did by yourself, just getting the proof of concept and some belief and momentum in your system, it sounds like.
That was it. It's the grind, man. And extreme ownership, right? Jocko Willink. Extreme ownership is one of those. And I know you do that with your 75 hard. Like that is all a mindset game, right? It's not hard for people to read the 10 pages a day, or it is hard to do 2 workouts a day. It is, but it's not, people can do what you're doing, but to mentally not just be interested, but commit to that on a day-to-day basis, right? And I applaud you for that, right? We talked about this before this session. And I applaud you for doing that, because it's all a mindset game. And this is where this came from behind me. The shut up and do it slogan was not for me, barking or yelling at students or talking to my teams or even my contractors. No. This was for me in my own head to shut up and take my phone back out. My phone's my way to make money and get out of the corporate grind, right? Marketing is my way to get out and doing, setting up my systems and forcing myself to be detail oriented when we're entrepreneurs and want to chase that next bright shining object. Like, shut up and do it is in my head constantly. And it's for me to stop what I call, right, like let me just say the bitch voice, right? And bring it out that boss voice that we can possibly use to focus on what we need to get done that day. And you're right. Power in the morning, man. Power in the morning. Sorry.
I love that. No, dude, I could talk about this all day. I go down like deep rabbit holes of all around that stuff. And it's interesting because like a lot of real estate coaching, I learned wholesaling when I started at the end of 2013, just from listening to Sean Terry's podcast recommended from InvestorFuse Dan. But a lot of the most successful people, clearly you do as well as a coach, focus on mindset first, because that's really the foundation. But like what I'm coming to learn a lot now with stuff that I'm studying and reading is like separating the thoughts that you have or whatever that chatter is in your mind, separating that from actually who you are, and kind of like almost playing your life like a video game for anybody that's like a Grand Theft Auto or has played anything like that, where you're just kind of like, do what you need to do, make the calls, knock on doors, whatever, and just separate yourself from any type of thoughts that you have, because you're really not your thoughts. That's just kind of what's going on in your head. And that's kind of my way of distilling down a lot of what mindset teaches, or as far as like getting momentum and taking the actions that you should be taking, or to put it in your terms, shut up and doing it.
I love that, because like you said, your brain lies to you every single day. Every morning
Constantly.
You wake up, you're in that bed, you don't want to get up. Your mind's lying to you right then. Like from the day one, this is just a function of all the stories and life experiences we put in here that comes back out in the form of thoughts and chatter, like you said. And the moment you realize, like you just said, you are not your thoughts, you can absolutely master what's going on up here. And it's difficult for a lot of people to grasp that. So I love it, dude. Love it. So excited to talk about all this. Yes.
Well, dude, let's incorporate that and talk about the empire you've built for yourself with that in mind, no pun intended, after you've done this first deal by yourself, breaking even, happy, maybe having some end of light tunnel visions as far as getting out of corporate America and doing this more so full time. Where'd you take it after doing that first deal by yourself?
Sure. The fix and flip business was then first, right, on my agenda. So I literally, after that moment, had to learn what rules do I have to set for myself. I'm a huge rule guy. You have to be as a banker. So where are my buy rules going to be? And I cannot go outside of these rules because I can't afford to lose any money. I don't have money to lose. I don't have the credit anymore. I couldn't do any of that. So that one rehab and learning about construction and learning about numbers and learning what people were looking for and learning how to work with contractors, that became like my launch point to, doing 6 and then 12 and then 30 and then up to, 80 and 90 and 100 deals a year. It doesn't mean we kept up that pace, but when you get to that point, like in scaling, I did not know how to scale until the 5 years ago when I set the core values in place. So it was me with like an office assistant and then a marketing assistant. And that helped me grow to a certain level. And then I realized, that you need people around you if you're going to succeed. And not only do you need people around you, you need to look out for the well-being of everyone around you as the team, right? Like the team mindset was so different from me. And I had, a disease. I attribute this to Jake and Gino on their podcast. They call it the IMA disease. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this and control, right? Like, especially with losing all that money, those first few, I had 5 hard resets in my real estate world. And a lot of them were not real estate related. A lot of them were personal that they morphed into my real estate business. And the biggest accomplishment I think I can say that I've had is every time you have one of those resets, how quick can you reframe and get back up? And what did you learn? Like, how quick can you reframe, get back up? And if you can go from what my first, 4 months head in the sand, like, woe is me, like my life is over, like I'm only, early 20s and I don't have any cash credit and I'm like 540,000, I think, in debt. Like, that took me 4 months. And now, not to say it feels any differently when you're going through it, right? Because it's always a shit show, but a divorce, right? Like, I'll just go through that and be vulnerable. Like last year I went through one of the hardest things in my life, a 12-month, it was really a 4-year battle, but a 12 months of like the harshest battle that I've ever had. And the fact remains is it was about process for me after a while. Like, I can let this bother me. I can let this affect and impact every single other side of my business, of my kids, of my relationships, of my mindset in the morning, but I don't have to let that happen. Right? I don't have to let that happen. And what can I do on a day-to-day basis that brings me to move the needles that actually matter in my world, my relationships, my own mindset, and ultimately what can move the needle in my business if I can just focus on being present in my business.
All about being present. And similarly, when working with homeowners, the house that they live in is typically like the biggest asset that they've purchased or have owned in their life. With a divorce, if you're getting divorced your wife, that's the most significant relationship that you've had in your life. So going through that, I mean, my parents had when I was older, 18, had a divorce that lasted 4 or 5 years and was like one of the messiest ones I've seen as far as splitting assets and stuff like that. So I could see the wear and tear on them emotionally. And one thing that you were saying is how some of the obstacles in your life are affecting your business. One thing that we're big on talking about is life and business are so integrated and so much the same thing. And me even knowing that is more so than I even realize it myself, as far as someone that really believes that. So this past year with COVID and everything going on, I think a lot of people will either have some business and or, life obstacles that they're overcoming. What are some of the things that you saw or implemented to keep yourself balanced, focused? And again, one thing that I could talk about all day and study and read about the most is the art of like becoming present and really putting importance on just like that millisecond over millisecond of time that you're in. And you can kind of flow from there, from how you're programmed. But what type of stuff did you do to help get over, the hardships from the divorce and everything like that? I know that we talked about being in debt, and as you're growing this, what type of stuff would you like to share on that?
Sure, absolutely. I would say power is found in your mornings, right? It's all about your routine in the morning. If you start the day correctly, I had a lot of uncertainty going into 2020. This is before COVID even happened. A lot of uncertainty. Like, I was kicked out of my marital home that I had built and was paying for, for my kids and my wife at the time. And I didn't know where I was going to live. Really, I was kind of bouncing around, and with my kids, like I couldn't just go into an apartment complex because everybody got mad with the kids running around, and it got, it was hard. They're kids; they're going to do that. But it was difficult for a while, and I remember finding that there's no certainty except in my own path, and my own path started in my morning. So what things can I do every single morning, even if it made me wake up? First, I started like, at the time I was waking up at like 7 o'clock and, going through some workouts, and I used to have a routine, and that routine went away when you go through a whole bunch of the stuff, and then you lose where you're going to live, and that goes away. So finally it's like, I have to reestablish my routine. What am I going to do? I need to do fitness. I need to have nutrition. I need to work on my own brain, whether that's journaling or meditating or whatever that could possibly be. And I ended up starting to use that 5-minute journal. And now I love the 5-minute journal. It's 5 minutes. Amazing. Yeah. It's like, and some days, there's Monday mornings, I spend like an extra hour on that instead of just 5 minutes. I'll do a full meditation. I'll do a full journal entry. Like, what am I thinking of and what am I going through? Then you have to make deposits into your relationships. So in the mornings, I try to send someone a really nice or loving note, right? Or a note of thanks or gratitude, starting the day with gratitude, whether that's, my relationship or my kids or whoever that would be. And finally, you then have to work on, I turn all that first because it's mindset first and it's personal first. Then it shifts into business. Then it shifts into, what can I do to move the needle today? And is there something new that I can learn and dive into? And once I dive into that, whether it's a YouTube video or a podcast or a book read or whatever that is, then I have to share it. I share it with my team, or I'll share it, with Matt, my COO, or I'll share it with a bunch of different groups that I've picked up over the years, even my coaching platforms. Like, who do I share that with after I've learned it for me? Because that helps you learn it, right? So if you do those things, I've found every single morning, and you'll know, right, when you miss one or two of them, like you just feel off. You just feel off. So that became the number one thing, is certainty. And number two, the second lesson I would say that I learned more than anything this past year was 3 words: letting go and surrendering. Letting go used to be horrible for me, especially because we collect, right? We accumulate. We have to continue in search of more and better and growth and everything. But the moment you learn that letting go is just a part of the progress and expansion in our lifetime, letting go of a bad relationship, letting go of employees that working there no longer serves them, letting go of deals that you were working on for 2 years, like a passion project that I had one in the hometown I grew up in. Like, learning when it's time to let go, and letting, if you're doing everything right, letting the universe put other things into play, that as long as you are prepared, as long as you have been studying, as long as you're there for the right reasons, you are going to capitalize on those next opportunities. There's a whole bunch of that. I'll just stop there because thank you. I know that there's like eight hours that you and I could go through together on that.
There is. And I want to be overly respectful of your time. I know you got another call here coming up in 6 minutes. So we have to do a part 2 here, because there's a lot of stuff that we could really deep dive on, to probably do a 2-day seminar on surrendering and letting go, kind of to whatever higher power, universe, however you want to word it, to the extent that you believe in that stuff or not. But one of my favorite clips here from the book, The Surrender Experiment, which was one of my favorite books I read last year, which was really, really good to read at the beginning of it was like right at the beginning of quarantine time in March. I started reading it. But the brain is almost designed just to do comfortable things that for survival. Like, it's strictly just like survival and like a mating machine. So it's like you're finding it, you're trying to, put yourself in position to meet and talk to attractive women, and also more so for survival. So when you're able to incorporate like uncomfortable and unknown type things, that's when the real magic happens. And that's something I'm very much working on myself. One of my favorite clips that I look at as part of my morning routine in my digital prosperity box here is a quote from that book, which is like, I would synthesize this as the whole 80-20 of the surrender experiment. And the author said, my formula for success was very simple. Do whatever is put in front of you with all your heart and soul without regard for personal results. Do the work as though it were given to you by the universe, because it was. And when you come from that framework of like, do whatever is put in front of you with whatever you got, without like any egoic results or trying to get praise or anything like that, see what comes out on the other side after you consistently do that with compounded interest coming back to you on the end of it.
10,000%. The journey and the process, right? Fall in love with the process for the process to love you back. We tell that to our teams. Matt, I have an amazing COO. He's amazing, and he leads my sales teams now. And he is so much on the process. And our teams wins. Like, what can you control? What can you not control? We can control dials. We can control texts. We can control outreach. But we can't control number of conversations. We can't control number of appointments. We can't focus on what you can control and do the right things every single day and do it for the right reasons, right? And the only thing I'll add to what you mentioned is that, I mean, that's so unbelievably accurate is just doing the process over the outcome. But at the same time, you do need a lighthouse. You need something that's guiding you through that. And it's okay for you to kind of set that lighthouse, knowing that that higher power might shift you, might course correct you into a whole different lighthouse. But at the same time, it's okay to pick targets, and targets you're supposed to shoot at something, because if you don't shoot at anything, you're just kind of drifting through life. Mm-hmm. But I love it, dude. I know this is maybe supposed to be a real estate conversation, but this is the whole point of real estate is this, right? This is the frame of why we do what we do on a day-to-day basis. And real estate is just our vehicle that we've all used to create wealth and to create impact among other people. So this is one of the most, profound podcasts that I've done. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, a pleasure and a privilege. And I'll echo that back to you 10 times. I do want to leave. What's the best resource? And maybe I can text you after this, because I know a lot of people will resonate with your story. I appreciate your vulnerability. I know that'll help a lot of people. One thing that I didn't get to touch on is just seeing some posts of yours the past year, which I like as well, because I'm an aspiring, I've always wanted to have a wife and kids and stuff like that. One point that we didn't get to touch on is the self-responsibility or extreme ownership in educating your children and not having faith in the education system. That's just a post I saw of yours in the past 6 months here, which piqued my interest. I want to get your quick, 1 minute answer on that, because I know you got a call here. And then also, what would be the best podcast or resource to learn more about your real estate journey, since we've talked a lot about mindset and extreme ownership and things like that?
Sure. Appreciate that. I'll touch on the kids. So learning to be intentional with kids was very difficult for me at the beginning, because again, I as a married man, I slowly, she sort of had a lot of the responsibilities, right? She took over pretty much everything. Like, I started doing lunches for the kids. I started driving them to school. She said, no, you're doing that wrong. So she would do the lunches. She's like, it's on my way to work. I'm just going to take the kids to school. Like, okay. I started becoming less and less involved as a father without even knowing it. And then finally, when this all happened and I had my own time with them that, didn't have another partner around, at first it was really hard. And then it became, this is magical. Like, this is exactly what I think we need to do as fathers, is to learn. If you don't know how to be intentional with your kids, have your kids alone, 50% of the time, with no help, with no one else. And that literally has taught me how to be intentional. And part of that is the education piece, like you mentioned, Carlos, especially this year, where school blew up anyway. They're all here anyway. So might as well focus on them as part of my workday. So they don't teach, as you know, business classes, entrepreneurship classes, money management classes. They don't teach impact classes. There's a lot of things they don't teach in public. School's great, and they need those fundamentals. They need math, they need spelling, they need phonics, they need reading, they need all that. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff they need. And if I can start right now with my 6-year-old and build him into, a business owner or the man that has the right values in play, that's really important to me. And it doesn't just happen. It takes time and intention from, the dad or the mom or both to invest that time into the kids. Because if they just rely on this public school system, or they rely on TV, or they rely on the tablets and educational programs, they're going to learn something. But what are they going to learn at the end of the day? They're going to be like a lot of the other people, Mm-hmm. So that's the educational piece. So I appreciate that. And yeah, would love to, if you want to dive more into the mechanics later in real estate and how we set up our teams and how we structure what we do. But for right now, if anyone's interested in getting a hold of me, they can, thank you for letting me plug we have a podcast. It's called the Shut Up and Do It podcast. And it's, shutupanddoitrealestate.com, or you can just check us out in iTunes and those types of things. We only focus on that show with people who have gone through the shit, as we call it. People who have gone through a challenge, have come up from it, and have learned from it, be it personal, be it business, be it, a scaling challenge, whatever it might be. And they can also come up. I'm on Facebook. I'm one of those old people. We still use Facebook because a lot of our customers, our motivated sellers, are on Facebook. So I'm on that probably more than any other engine. So they can do that, or they can LinkedIn with me. And they can go to aarealestategroup.com for our corporate site to see what we're up to. But I appreciate the opportunity, Carlos. Thanks for having me on, man.
A pleasure and a privilege, genuinely, man. Appreciate you. Wishing you massive success and happiness on the journey. I think we may have to do a part 2 here to dive more into the nuts and bolts of the real estate side of things. Guys, show Nick some love. I'll have everything in the show notes for you guys, and I'll let you bounce, man, because I know you got another call. But have a fantastic rest of your day, man. Appreciate you.
You too, buddy. Have a power one.